Awkward start to that one, just like your start to the race here, Austin. A little bit awkward to this main event. I know it's a little bit early to throw salt on the wound. Apologies about that. But, Joe, we talked to you obviously after the race, but I want to talk a little bit to you about kind of the experience over here, right? I mean, I kind of broke it down, and you forget about these things here when you kind of get into the mix of covering all the drivers. But everything about this experience, these 2 weekends here in the last month and a half, has been completely new for you. New chassis, new team, new country, new racetrack, going back to an engine platform you haven't raced in a few years. So how big of an adjustment has it been? How changeful has everything been?
Yeah, it's definitely been a challenge. But in the end, it's still 4 wheels and an engine. Like, the kart wasn't hard to adapt to. I did X30 a while ago, so it wasn't too hard to come back and adapt, but the level was extremely high. I mean, I expected it to be tough coming here, but yeah, it was really tough. Older drivers is what I'm used to racing as well. In the OK category, it tends to be younger kids who are extremely fast, but yeah, the race that we just had now wouldn't have been the same if it was younger kids, because they make mistakes and whatever. But yeah, extremely tough competition, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, we enjoyed having you over here, and we're hoping to have you a little bit more. Ryan, let's go over to you. You know, at the end of January, I was joking with you that as much as I'm a big fan of everybody in the field, it was kind of good that you didn't win over there, and I'm sure it bites a lot more to get through February and still not have it. Where does your head stand at here with the championship all wrapped up now?
I'm happy with the results. I mean, I'm obviously a little disappointed with not winning, not winning a round. We had pace in a lot of the rounds as well, and yeah, to just come up short, a couple times is not, it doesn't feel super great. But like Joe said, I mean, the competition is probably the best it's been in a long time. I mean, having a lot more mature drivers is nice. I mean, it's nice. Even just practice is nice. I mean, nobody's trying to follow you like, juniors normally do, where they're just hunting on your bumper the whole time. It's like everybody goes out and we respect each other, and we respect each other on the racetrack, and the racing's really, tough and aggressive, but in the end, like, we all shake hands and we all understand that this is all our jobs, and, we're here to do our jobs. So, yeah, I mean, I'm a little disappointed in not winning, but it's one of those things. It's a reality check. I mean, we went from having such a dominant season to not dominating like we used to, and so it's one of those things you need every once in a while. You need to be put back in your place and reminded that you got to still work, you got to show up every day, and you got to want it more than everybody else. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to go out and try and win it some more.
Austin, let's go over to you here a little bit. In Ryan's case, you two guys came up together, racing a whole lot together, and then the last few years you've been, so much of a kind of, again, I like to call it journeyman, real career the last few seasons, different programs, different chassis, not knowing when and if, you were going to get back behind the wheel again. And now, this has been the most active I feel like you've been behind the wheel in quite some time. So how cool has it been to have that, experience again? And do you feel a whole lot different than even where you were at January as a driver, kind of just warmed up, I guess?
Yeah, no, I definitely can feel myself getting my bearings back together and starting to be faster. Like how the first round went, I wish I had a little bit more pace. Would have helped me out more in the championship. But, yeah, hopping on to a different karts, I was on, I think, 3 different brands, coming into this race here. And not racing, a lot. It was just like every other month I would be back in the seat. But now, after this weekend, I feel like, my pace is really well, and I'm happy with the whole team and everything. But for sure, if we're going to be doing more races, I'm going to be in the seat more, like I said, get my bearings back together, and hopefully my pace will be even better, so it'll help me out in the long run.
And switching, kind of piggybacking off of Ryan's comments a little bit, both of you guys are now elder statesmen in the class and veterans. You've got Aiden and Grata really under your tutelage, and, Paulie, who is becoming a veteran himself. But do you think about it at all as kind of being one of those guys on the old guard or standing guard of the class, saying, hey, this is how we race, this is how we don't race, and, trying, especially with Aiden directly, but also being a part of this almost like driver's council in a certain way to say, hey, we don't want to just go tear things up for no reason. We want to have respect out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely been working with Aiden on that. He's new. He wants to go and prove himself and be fast and everything. And sometimes it does bite him in the butt. But we still got to go and work with him. He's a very fast driver, very talented. Obviously, some moves aren't great, and it hurts them in the long run. Paulie, he is a very fast driver. Sometimes the track placement isn't as well, and we go back over the data and everything and try to go and work on that for them to benefit all of us, because it's better to have 3 people on the same team up front than just one standalone guy. But besides that, being that lead guy with our team, it's a big responsibility for me to get my drivers as fast as I am, if not faster. And throughout this whole weekend, Aiden and Paulie have shown pace a lot of times are quicker than I was. So, that just goes to show that I'm doing, my part to have drivers that I'm training that are just as fast as me, and they're learning off of me. And it's pretty cool to see them, what I go and tell them, they kind of go and show it on the racetrack. And I'm like, wow, it's kind of exciting to go and watch that, train these young drivers to go and be just as good as we are at a young age.
And then, back to you, Joe, right? For both of these guys, they've had in both weekends their teammates be up with them to the point that they could almost be beneficial data points. Thomas Naveau got going here by the end of the weekend, but January was a bit of a struggle. He admitted himself to running part-time. He was a little rusty. So, do you feel like it was at any bit kind of to your detriment not having teammates and being somewhat of a single-car operation to start, like with you leading the charge versus these guys having more data points to try stuff on?
I think in one way, yes. It was tough to it always helps when you've got more people to try things on the chassis and test. So maybe that slowed us down a bit, but we came out earlier to do a bit of testing ourselves. So the stuff that we missed there, we got to grips with. But everyone in the race was respectful. No one was really using teammates to screw over other people. So racing wise, I think Rollinson and Speed were respectful, and they didn't try and use other people in the team to try and win the championship, which I think is pretty good.
And, let's go a little bit on setup. Now that the weekend's over, you guys can't give all your cards away, but if you have to go back through the 2 weekends and think back of things you did to work on yourself or work on the car to, chase to eventually get to be where you guys were, because all 3 of you, we talked to every other driver on the grid, it seemed like, from, 4th on back here this weekend, and especially today, every single one of them was frustrated that they had a 0.5 to a 1/10 loss to you guys on the average every session. So in your case, was there stuff that you guys had to work throughout the day? Were you fully stock? Was there anything on your own that you were working through on this layout that was what was the challenge for you, if anything, on finding speed, Joe?
I mean, we tested a lot of things through Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Saturday, we were good but not good enough to do what we did today, and we were standard today. Standard KR out the box, DAP, same chassis.
Yeah. Ryan, over to you. I mean, again, he obviously goes, that's what everybody says, right? Everybody says standard out of the box. I'll believe you on this
bit
one.
Bit of caster, and that was it.
That was a bit of caster, right? So in your case, I'm not asking specifically for the setup, but from what it was like out there, what was everybody chasing? Was there more understeer, oversteer? We had a hot pre-final, then it cooled back off, especially for this main event. I mean, what does that do? What was it like from your deal?
I mean, I think they were chasing 3 pro drivers. I think that's what they were chasing. I think you had 3 guys who were, we look at qualifying. Qualifying was really close. It's not like qualifying was, we were just way ahead of the rest of the field. I think as the race went on, you saw drivers stay consistent and other drivers fall off a little bit, manage their tires a little bit better. And, obviously, there's other pro drivers in the class that, might be struggling with some chassis setup stuff here and there. But you had 3 guys who were keeping their tires underneath them and saving the karts to the end of the session. And, I mean, you'd see it in Joe's case. He was, relaxed in the beginning, wasn't really trying a whole lot. And then, 3 laps at the end, he turns it up. And I think it's the same for Austin and everybody. I mean, I think they're chasing 3 experienced older drivers. I don't think necessarily it's about setup. I mean, I was talking to Austin, vaguely about what we can talk about as competitors. But I mean, we're on the same brand, so I mean, we have similar issues, and we see where things are going. But I mean, just looking at his card on the grid, we're on 2 different setups. I mean, we're both fighting different issues, and I mean, you're just looking at 3 guys who are managing their stuff over the long run and keeping their karts underneath them and staying out of trouble.
Talking about keeping the carts underneath you, Austin, how much of a struggle was it? I mean, there was so much dirt from you getting knocked off the racetrack at the start of that main event that even the leaders coming through on lap number 2 had to kind of avoid it or be a little bit wary in turn 2. How long did it take you to kind of reset the bearing? Because it looked like you were back kind of rolling forward by lap 3 or 4.
Yeah, that's about how many laps it took. It took about 3 to 4 laps, because you saw on the opening lap I had a lot of dirt on the tires, and people in front of me were still blocking, so I'm having to go down to the bottom of the racetrack and have more dirt on my tires, and it's pretty challenging, to salvage where I was at for the first opening laps and not fall back anymore. But I think I did a pretty good job of holding my spot. Then after I kind of brushed off the dirt off the tires, and then I just put my head down and just pushed as hard as I possibly could. I kind of think, in the long run, I probably pushed a little bit too hard at the start of the race, potentially overheated my tires too quick, because I know I didn't have the pace that they had towards the very end of the race. Plus, we changed a little bit on the chassis that it was okay at first, but it just didn't last the whole time. But that was about it.
Joe, over to you. For your first 2 race weekends here, I feel like you've got at least a good pulse of what a lot of our American circuits are like, because they're very similar in certain aspects to grip levels from the comparison to the European tracks that you've been running on the FIA Karting Championship and some of the WSK stuff as well. Can you break down what that transition's like? Is it as much as some of the guys that come over from overseas say, that we have a lot lower base grip level and rubber down, or what was it like? Did it feel any bit different in your case?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, we're using a fairly soft tyre with the MG Yellow, but the track itself was pretty grippy. I was surprised with how much grip there was. Okay, obviously over there we have the odd track where we go to, and it's just a ridiculous amount of grip. But anyway, I don't enjoy them anyway. But this one I mean, I thought I preferred it slightly the other way. This one took a longer time to get used to going clockwise, but no, the track's cool. I mean, it punishes you if you go wide or if you go off, but you have to push, but at the same time you can't push over the limit. So no, the track's good. I enjoyed it.
And Ryan, over to you. Comparing this from previous years, the way that the track was here today, how can you describe it? Grip level, dirtiness, even from January. The winds picked up. That was about as close as we got to how windy it was back then, and that's what we thought it might have attributed to the dirty parts. But from your perspective, did it feel a whole lot different a month removed?
I think for sure this direction's a lot grippier. Especially, I think it's mainly just because the other direction is run more, and you lay a lot of that rubber on that entry, to middle of the corner, and so in this direction we're getting that entry rubber going the other way. So yeah, there's a lot more grip center off this way, so you can charge it in super fast. And I mean, you see Joe and I was behind Joe. There's a few times when you go into turn 1 too fast, the cart doesn't slide, it just hops. I mean, you just get a grip hop all the way through the first corner and the second one as well, and a lot of the corners. I mean, if you go too fast into the hairpin, it's the same thing. You just grip hop around the racetrack. And so I think it's mainly just because of the way the direction change on the racetrack. I definitely like this direction a lot more. I think it suits our carts a little bit better, and it suits my driving style. I like to be aggressive on the entries and corners. I'm super aggressive on the brakes, and so this definitely helps me. But as far as the dirtiness, I mean, it's like Joe said, the track punishes you, which, I mean, is good when you're on the good side of it and is bad when you're on the bad side of it. It's good that it's hard, though. I mean, it's definitely one of those things where it separates the drivers. Drivers who make mistakes are going to struggle, and drivers who don't, obviously, you rise to the top. And those mistakes I made early in the in the first couple of rounds, I think that's why Joe's sitting here as a champion, and I'm not. Those mistakes cost you and cost me a lot. I mean, I was dropping tires in the first round. In the second round, I mean, I was much more competitive, but again, mistakes here and there. Going wide, one or two times is all it took, and now you can't make it happen. So. Yeah, I mean, it punishes you, but that's what you want. That's what you want to see, the best drivers racing on the hardest tracks and, racing in the tightest competition.
Talking about punishing you, Austin, wasn't too many years ago when we had, before the curbs were fully redone, jumping onto the outside barrier in the last corner, but then you were basically motocrops whoops section through back onto the racetrack, hit the inside curb, then jump over the outside curb again. You were one of the first drivers to do it and pretty much bloodied your entire back. Sacrificing it to go fast. now with the way everything's been situated, we're still popping the curb in the infield. How physical is it this way versus last way, in your eyes?
So with the curbing, definitely, the curbs that we had to go and hit, a few years ago, it was very physical on your body, and the carts took a pretty big beating. And but still, driving-wise, it's just as physical running this way, compared to running clockwise to counterclockwise. I think it's harder to go and drive it this way, obviously, with all the rubber got laid down, how Ryan was saying. But definitely, it's not easy at all. I prefer this way, not having having certain track limits. The other way, we were hitting all those motocross jumps back there. That was just way too much. But I like how it is now. It's the baseline of it is a lot better. But
I think to piggyback off what Austin said, though, I think that the last year's track was, or 2 years ago, however long ago it was, but the old curbing was more physically challenging, and this track is way more mentally challenging. I think, like, as a driver to do 22 laps, I mean, Joe was talking about it, it's exhausting just because you're on that ragged edge all the time because you still have to push. I mean, the rubber's in the same spot, so you still can carry the same speed you could when you're hitting the curbs. You don't have that safety net of the whoops on the exit. You just have to keep going. And so, I mean, even in Joe's case, he's leading, and I was faster, I think, in this front section, but it's so hard to lead in the first couple corners because you don't know if somebody's gone off. You don't know anything, so you always have that little bit of hesitancy, in the first couple corners because, I mean, in the pre-final you saw it. He went in normal, everything was fine, and then just straight off the racetrack. And it happens just randomly. And so, yeah, I mean, mentally it's really draining on you after 20 laps when you have a lead and then you're like, I don't know, can I break at the same spot that I did last time because I might just wash off the racetrack and I have no idea that that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, how mentally draining was it for you, Joe? I'm sure you were checking the gap back or looking for signals at all. I mean, the whole race up until the last maybe couple laps, the gap was big enough maybe you could breathe. Did you feel a lot of pressure? Was it mentally taxing to be running those laps knowing you're on the limit and Ryan was right there?
Yeah, 100%. It might have looked like the last lap I was more chilled, but not at all. I mean, every time I looked back, there was a purple cart behind me, and the gap would vary lap to lap. Sometimes he'd be closer, and sometimes he wouldn't. But no, I mean, 22 laps was painful. Like, I mean, the first 10 you can relax a bit because there's more going on, and as Ryan said, there's dirt being kicked up when everyone's in a closer proximity, and if you're in second, you can stay there pretty easy. But then the last 10, when it's just like, here we go, now who can go, that's tough because you're just putting in quali lap after quali lap, and the track, to go fast around here, you need to be on the limit of every curb, exit curb, entry curb, and that's when you make mistakes as well. So yeah, it was tough.
Now, to wrap things up here a little bit, final kind of questions for everybody. Joe, for you, this wasn't a surprise to see you on the entry list, knowing that Kart Republic has a really, really strong relationship here stateside as we do overseas, that you would be the driver they'd tag to come over here. We've seen that with multiple factory drivers they have before. But looking at your calendar, do you have any idea of if we'll get to see you more on the North American calendar through the rest of the regular season?
Yeah, I hope so. That's the plan. There's going to be clashes at points, but I'm going to try and get over here as much as I can. It's good for fitness, and as I said before, the level here is as high as anywhere I've raced before. So to race out here does me no harm at all, and it's good. I mean, I enjoy coming over here. Great racing, and it's a great place as well.
Well, we enjoy having you over here, so we're happy to have you as another feather on the cap. As for Ryan, almost died there for a second, but I think I got my battery. Maybe I don't. I don't know. I got the right. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. This is like happy hour all over. This is terrible. For a question over to you, the last thing, like you said, right? Do you feel like, do you really feel like this year now, with Joe here helping to hopefully come for more races, for Austin looking at a full-time schedule, for guys like Louis and Morgado and Ramos that are all, and even Paulie now as well, do you feel like there's a kind of a forming of a good guard of respective veterans in the senior class that we haven't seen in a few seasons? Yeah,
I do. I mean, I was telling you at the beginning of the season, this is probably the most competitive winter series we've had in a long time, and I mean, I hope Joe comes back more. I hope, obviously Morgado's planning on racing. I don't know. Obviously, he's racing in Europe too, so there's going to be some clashes here and there. But I hope more factory guys come over. I like the legitimacy that it brings to American karting because, like Joe said, it is a very high level. And a lot of the times, you hear a lot of Europeans talk that they don't respect American racing, and it always brushes me the wrong way because I'm racing here and I'm like, it's tough. It's not easy because I've raced in both, and it's tough. And like Joe said, in Europe, there's a lot of just fast kids, and over here, there's maybe not as many fast drivers, but the experience level is really high, and you're going to race a bunch of experienced veterans in the sport, and so. Yeah, I'm very happy with it. I mean, even though I didn't win, I still had. This is one of the most fun winter series I had. It's the most challenging one I had. I mean, I really had to push myself. I mean, I was just talking to my team a little bit, and I'm just like, I'm racking my brain over what we could have done differently and what we should do next time. And it's good. I mean, it pushes everybody. It brings that level up to what it should be. And this is, I mean, I was telling you a little bit about it, but I like it. I mean, I love to see pro drivers. Like, for me as a professional karting driver, that's awesome. I like seeing more of these guys having, some reason to stay in the sport. A lot of these guys get up and they just leave karting and they view it as a stepping stone, which it is for some people. But, there's a lot of guys like us that are veterans in the sport and are really good at this and have this skill that's very niche. And so I like that there's people putting in the effort to keep these drivers in and to, legitimize the U.S. karting scene.
When we talk about professionals here, Austin Garrett said there's no question you're in that class. Reason you're up here as well. Even this week, it was a little bit worrisome whether or not we'd even get to see you out there. Has that changed at all with your performance through the weekend, or is it still going to kind of be a little race-by-race basis of whether or not we get to see you behind the wheel?
I'm not entirely sure yet. I know we want to go and race other races like the Pro Tour, the United States Pro Kart Series, but it all depends how many people we bring to our team, to kind of offset the cost when I go out there and race. But hopefully I can go out there and race. I enjoy racing against Ryan and all the other drivers. I mean, just like how Ryan was saying, the level that we had this year for the SKUSA Winter Series is very high. There's a lot of very talented drivers, a lot of fast drivers in it. So hopefully that can kind of carry on, just like the SKUSA Pro Tour or the United States Pro Kart Series, and hopefully, Joe can come back and run those races, because it's very, very talented.
Well, we appreciate having you here, and we're happy that you at least got to run all this stuff here, and hopefully that flows on into more. For Joe Turney, Ryan Norberg, Austin Garrison, myself, the SuperKarts USA crew, the Kart Chaser team, and everyone here at AMR Homestead-Miami Motorplex, it's been an awesome weekend of racing. Awesome 2 total weekends here for the SKUSA Winter Series. For those of you guys watching along, again, we are back live in just 5 days' time at the PK Race Park in Loxahatchee, Florida, for the Rock Cup USA Florida Winter Tour, for the SuperKarts USA and US Pro Kart Series Miami competition. It's about a month off, and we come back at Orlando Kart Center. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.